Hello, my friends of the interwebs. Thank you so much for being here and joining me today. I feel like some of you may not be joining me again after this video, but this is the whole reason that I wanted to speak on this subject matter because it is a normal part of healthcare that has happened for thousands of years, and I just kind of wanted to share my experience. I got an abortion at the age of 23 in the middle of a long-term relationship with my partner at the time, and it took me a while to process that emotionally, physically, and to stop carrying shame around the fact that this happened. There are so many stigmas around abortions and people who get them, but abortions are used for all different reasons. Even women who want to give healthy births have complications and need to get their child aborted, and it is always a tough decision to make, and there are risks for getting abortions just as much as there are for childbirth, and there's just a lot to unpack here. And for whatever reason, every single time I feel like I've healed something within myself, my own self-judgment, I feel called to put it on the internet to this great void of the collective conscience, because it feels like the final release for me. Like, I've deconstructed shame within my own life, so let me just put it on the internet for other people to find comfort in, or even to maybe feel confronted within themselves about their belief systems. But whatever you take away from this video, I think will be a positive, because hopefully it will highlight what your truth is. I am 27 now, so this was quite a few years ago, and the other day I was just getting ready in the morning to meet with some friends, and I thought about how much freedom exists in my life, how much space I have every single day to chase my dreams, to further my education. I'm studying a few different things. I'm reading books that I love and writing and just doing so much that makes me feel developed as a woman and that continues to inspire me as a woman. And after I got my abortion and I started talking to the people around me, I realized every single woman that I knew either has had an abortion or knew someone who had, and yet I felt so much shame around it, or so much of this feeling like it's a taboo subject to talk about, and it means that I'm irresponsible, it means that I'm selfish, and it means that I'm a bad person. Of course, some extremists think like I'm just gonna go to hell, which is fine. That's not my belief system. But I realized that I'm living a life right now that no other women in my lineage have been able to. The amount of access I have to the world, to my time, to my complete autonomy, especially being single at this age, I just kept thinking I'm so happy that I didn't make that choice, because who I am now is completely different from that person, and I needed this time to grow and develop and know myself and become more patient and become more understanding and better at communicating. And this video isn't to persuade or dissuade anyone from their own decision making. This is just my journey and why this choice felt really important to me and a reclamation to me, and I feel like I owe it to myself to use all the resources that I have, live a really good life, make beautiful things with this mind, and be a good friend and lover to everyone who I get to love. I feel like parents always make it work, whether their child is planned or unplanned. They get their shit together, they make it work. But for me, because of my background, I knew that I wanted to have a certain amount in my savings before having kids. I wanted to have a house before having kids. I wanted to be very developed in my relationship, and I just had a lot of really intense boundaries around this decision because of my childhood being so chaotic and feeling very unintentional and unplanned and unsupported. But I got pregnant on my period. I've made a lot of videos about sex education, but I haven't spoken as much on birth control and contraception, and that's another reason why I wanted to make this video. Like, this should be a part of sexual education as well, is abortions. And when unexpected things happen, I have tried varying birth controls. The pill made me so emotionally unstable, and for the most part was relying on condoms and cycle syncing. I did the temperature regulation on my yoni, and I was doing this when I got pregnant. I would pretty much not have sex when I was ovulating, and when I was on my period, I would have sex without any protection. And I learned that I could get pregnant while on my period, and I found out the day after my next missed period, because I was so regular that the day after my missed period, I took a pregnancy test and I was pregnant. I immediately knew in my body that it wasn't the time for me, and I went to my gynecologist. I had to get an ultrasound, which was really a tough thing to do, knowing that I did not want to keep this child, and my partner didn't really agree with me on that choice, and yet he did support me through it. I got the pill in the mail about a week later, and I had an abortion at home, and it lasted about 8 hours. It's 2 pills that you take, and I felt like I was having contractions the entire time. It was so painful for me, and it differs for everyone. I had a really painful time, and I saw everything come out of my body within the first hour, but those contraction like feelings continued. The only thing that helped relieve the pain was taking a bath. So I sat in the bath for pretty much 6 hours, shriveling up like a prune. For about 2.5 years after that, I struggled with vaginismus, which is basically when your vagina gets really tight and painful during penetration and you struggle to get wet. It was really hard for me to have sex for a very long time after that, especially because I wouldn't know when this feeling would flare up. Sometimes it would happen, sometimes it wouldn't, but this is a side effect of abortion. And I'm the only one out of many people I know who have had an abortion who have had this as a side effect. And I am just recently feeling like so regulated down there, and it took a very long time. It was really painful and added to this sort of traumatic feeling of what I had put my body through. And the only thing that helped me was taking things really slow and being on top when initiating penetration again, and using lube and just doing things to meet myself and my body where it was at when I was ready to have sex again and be in pleasure. I did a ceremony for what came out of me. I buried it with my partner underneath a tree that we planted, and told that soul that we weren't ready yet, and we hope that maybe in the future that soul would come back. And that is how I feel about the spiritual aspect of having an abortion. It does feel like cutting this cord and saying not right now. There's just so much pressure put on women to carry through with childbirth, and then once they become mothers, once they have their child, there is very little support for them in the system. And I know this because I had that experience as a child, and now it has only gotten worse. There is very little support for families in low income situations, and the foster care system is also treacherous. So there is so much more nuance than it just being a selfish choice. I think it's a very responsible choice, and I'm not saying that people who don't have a savings and don't have a house shouldn't follow through with a pregnancy. I think that it takes so much patience and time and unconditional love to have a child, and if you have the will to commit to that, then you can trust that you'll do everything you can to make it work. I did not have the will at the time. I knew I was feeling selfish at the time. I knew I still wanted my life to be my own for a little bit longer, because I had only been in long-term relationships from the age of 17 or even 16 with my high school boyfriend until that point. I had only been single for 3 full months. 3 months of me living my life completely for myself without any man's voice in my head or woman's. It was like, am I really ready to now fully give myself to another person when I've barely given my energy to myself? And that's what I've been feeling this past year, which is the longest that I've been single up until this point, is I'm so happy that I've given myself the time to discover who I am, and that was absolutely the right choice for me. I grew up with 4 siblings who all had different fathers, and I, at such a young age, was questioning why my mom had me and wondering why she didn't abort me. Straight up, I was like, I wouldn't have judged her if she didn't have me. This is a lot to exist in this family that, I just always felt like a burden. I felt like they couldn't afford to have me. I felt like I questioned my existence at such a young age because of the domestic abuse that I experienced, and I did not want to live for so much of my life, and I still struggle with that in phases, just certain peak moments of immense overwhelm where my mind goes to that place of just wanting to die, and I feel so puny and small, and so much of it has to do with those formative years where I felt really untethered from any sort of stability or safety or even just basic affirmation. I had no idea where to source my self-worth for so much of my life, and I just sort of disappeared in the gaze of people. I didn't know what parts of me were valid or allowed to shine, or how to be myself. That was something I struggled with for so long, to the point where when I started dating, I would just be whoever my partner wanted me to be, and that's not a real relationship. And so it was very easy for me to feel like disappearing. And so because of this, I just see the immense responsibility in raising a child in such a loving environment with so much time and so much patience and the ability to pay for their basic needs, and not an ounce of resentment over their life taking away from yours. I go back and forth in my head around this idea of having children frequently. And something that I always return to is, if I'm thinking what I can get from a child, like the gratification of carrying on my lineage and making a cute version of myself, more superficial reasons to have a child, versus how much do I feel like I have to give and offer another soul? How much do I feel like I have the patience to raise and instill good values in another person? Like, am I thinking about what I can give more than what I can get out of having a child? I just want to feel like every part of me is really excited about even the challenges and the unpredictable aspects. And at the time that I was pregnant, I was terrified and shaking in my boots, and it wasn't the opinion of some people around me, and yet I knew that I had to listen to my body. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that, and I'm proud of anyone who is making that choice right now and is listening deeply to what they think is the most responsible. Right now in my life, I think about having kids all the time, how amazing it would be to read them bedtime stories and cook them meals every day and cuddle with them and learn more about communication with them and just grow with them. That sounds so exciting to me, and I would really love to be a mother one day, but I'm still so unsure about how it would feel to raise a child in this world, in this political climate, in this environmental climate. I'm still taking my time with all of that process, but I do think at this stage in my life, adoption sounds like the way that I would go. Like, I will raise any child that happens to find me with the wholeness of my love, and maybe I'll get to do that someday, but still taking the time to set up those foundations. And I could very much see myself not having kids and writing many books as I age and exploring all the different creative mediums that I want. And it is really crazy how this option of being single for the rest of your life, not being in a traditional marriage, and not having kids is this option that isn't shown to us very much. Especially like when I grew up in the early Y2K era, it was just kind of like heteronormativity as fuck everywhere, constantly reinforced. And now that I've been single for this amount of time, I really just think I could do so much with this time and with this peace, and with all of the love that I have in my life that is genuinely unconditional from my friends. It feels like a revolution in my body, in my mind. I think being queer has also illuminated this, but the idea of just spending my time enjoying my life for myself, and it sounds selfish to say that, to live this life well is to use all the resources, all the blessings and miracles that you have around you and build from them, generate from them, share them, and there's so many different ways that that can look. I'm really excited to see how it all unfolds. For me and all of my other artsy, queer, hot friends, I'm like, what are we gonna do? Everyone in my life is so empowered and so sure of the path that they're creating for themselves, and so much of it is coming from within versus the external voices all around them. From the moment that I started posting YouTube videos consistently at around the age of 18, I have gotten so many comments, so much feedback from crusty, dusty, older men, mostly white, just saying an array of comments from completely sexualizing me to shaming my body, saying that, oh, I'm not that hot, or this could be better about me, to telling me that I'm naive and that I'm completely out of touch and crazy, to telling me that I'll never be wifey material, never find a husband, asking me what my body count is on all of my sexuality videos, and just feeling triggered by my presence online and trying to save me from the fate of not finding a husband and a partner. Like, it is crazy. I had men making videos about my vegan diet and talking about my acne at the time, and they would say things like I have big fake boobs and I'm just seeking attention from men. and it doesn't make sense that I'm vegan but have silicone in my body, which I literally don't. But anything that they could find, and basically just this feeling that they knew something that I didn't, and that I'm just so young and dumb, and I am lucky to be receiving their guidance in the form of these really weird shaming comments that just sound so much like a wounded man who doesn't have very diverse examples of female expression in their lives. And I used to take this very personally, but then I realized that if I'm triggering incel, very far right men, then that means I'm doing something right. If I was appeasing those men and making them happy and making them proud with what I'm sharing on here, I would be very concerned. The more that I can piss off these men, the better. It makes me feel like I'm on the right path. It's just interesting feeling like they need to save me from the fate of the path that I'm going down. Meanwhile, I will be so happy never engaging with a man again. I'll be so happy just marrying all of my friends and having children with them. The climate is so different, and a lot of men don't fully realize that. Like, damn, you are in a completely different world, and I'm going to disassociate from your world as much as I can. I think it was my last video all about slut shaming that I posted, where I got a lot of comments from these incel type of men asking what my body count is, saying all these things about me being a slut, which is really funny because the whole video is me talking about how, like, yeah, people have been calling me this my whole life because I'm sexually liberated and curious and very open to talking about it. There are a lot of men who are acting the same way that middle school boys used to act and saying the same things that middle school boys used to say to me, and that just reflects really poorly on them. And then I find my compassion, and then I'm like, well, damn, it must suck to live in such a closed-minded world. It must suck to live in a world where there are such intense ideas of right and wrong. Being able to explore yourself and get to know yourself sexually is not allowed. Like, I feel bad that that's their experience, and I send it love. And with that, with keeping my heart open in hell, it just requires a lot of discernment around who I'm engaging with, and being really curious about men's experience. And whenever I am hanging out with a new guy friend, I really like to ask him what his experience is like as a man, what things are hard for them. And some people might be cringing at this, but I'm just curious, like, what things that I don't know about being a man that are challenging, and that usually invites them to ask me as well, and it creates really beautiful and interesting conversations. A lot of men don't know that we live in a patriarchy. A lot of men don't know that women face regular oppression and are regularly afraid for their lives until you tell them, because that's not their experience. But I completely understand anyone who is a misandrist does not have the energy to constantly give men the benefit of the doubt, especially depending on where you live. Like, 1000% respect to you. I have a little bit more patience and time on my hands right now. Yeah, I guess I never really touched on these topics, especially responding to hate comments from men, but it is something that I'm regularly dealing with. Whenever I get kind of intense, wacky comments from these cis white men is when I realize that I am living in a way that is a little bit of a revolution within my own lineage and also within society. Being 27 years old and financially independent and not having a man and not having kids and being queer and loving my friends in ways that some people only ever love their partners. There is complete agency and authority in my life. Like, that is such a good feeling, and sometimes I forget how special that is until one of these crusty dusties comments something on my page, when it's like, I am being so authentically myself on here that I can't internalize your comment because this is just so naturally who I am, and there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, I was gonna film a completely different video today on creativity, my creative reset routine, but I'm going to post that next week. I just felt like this is an area of my life that's been feeling really alive and life-giving, is feeling like my life is my own, and I'm just on my knees grateful to all the past versions of myself that have allowed me to be here and allow myself to continue to learn so much more about myself and life and communication and writing novels and all of the things that feel like my life's purpose and the reason why I was birthed into this world. You know, I've questioned it so much, like, why the F am I here? I've also tried to die so many times and it hasn't been successful. Like, my heart rate has literally stopped. I have fallen from 3-story buildings. I have overdosed on Xanax, and somehow this heart is still beating. And I'm like, I think it's my solemn duty to discover why that is. And every single time that I find something that makes me feel alive and makes me feel so purposeful, I'm like, oh, yes, okay, let me really give that the dedication that it deserves. Whenever I'm very vocally affirming how fucking blessed my life is, it's because I'm really, really grateful, and I recognize the privilege of my time and of my autonomy, and I just want to encourage it, and I want to feed it life. When women feel empowered, they're not just serving themselves. What they're doing usually always ends up serving the community around them, and the love that comes from that is just so pure. I thank you for listening deeply to yourself in whatever way that you are right now, and I hope that you find daily moments and feelings of empowerment and the breaking of cycles. And I just wanted to share how life is feeling for me right now in the world of men, which is that it's pretty copacetic. I am very much minding my business, and I just feel like there are so many cool, artsy, queer folks who are in a similar phase of life, and I feel all of us together championing one another. Your life is my life, your death is my death, your creative breakthroughs are mine, and there is, sometimes contraction on this path of not doing a more traditional lifestyle. There are moments of heartbreak and grief, choosing to be alone, choosing to not date, or choosing to not have children, along with all the shiny moments of complete clarity. I'm proud of you for any empowered, heartfelt choice that you're making. There are no wrongs. We are just endlessly becoming. Those are my thoughts. I probably will think of a million other things that I wish I could have added to this video, but those are just some things that have been on my mind I wanted to illuminate. And thank you for hearing me. I hope that you take something away from this video, even if it was a little bit triggering, and maybe I'll see you next week. Bye! Be well.